Let me know. One thing Penguins wise, I've been wanting to talk about for a little while, but we had the break with the channel. We haven't been around, so I didn't get to talk about it. We got 2 games left in the season, and you have Evgeny Malkin and Chris Letang, who are going to be free agents, and Brian Rust. So those are some big names sitting out there. Can the Penguins sign all 3? Can they sign 2? Or are we going to lose? I don't think we lose all 3, but God, if we lose 2 out of 3, that might not be unrealistic. So my question is, as a Penguins fans, I'm going to exclude Rust from this for a second. Okay. Because I know everyone loves Rusty. I love Rusty. I want him back. But Malkin and Letang are like cornerstones of the Penguin franchise, and one of them could be gone next year. So I want to ask you guys your opinion. If you had to choose and you could only keep one, are you taking Gino or are you taking Letang? Think about that for a second. Who would you take? Now, they're both very polarizing, and here's why. Both of them are dominant. Letang might be one of the best skaters in the league. He eats up minutes like crazy. He's an offensive dynamo. This year, he probably going to pass his point total ever this season, which is crazy. But he's also a turnover machine. He makes a lot of dumb defensive mistakes. He costs this team a lot. I feel like he's been better the past month. Early in the season, he was really struggling in the defensive zone. Last season, I thought he was fantastic. I thought last season was one of his best seasons, actually. This year, he struggled a lot early. He's been better lately, but he's always been like that. He's polarizing. So you got to take the high skating, high energy Letang with the turnover machine, bad defensive decision. Gino kind of the same way. Gino's a guy, he's been one of the most dominant players in the NHL for the past decade. But God, how many 2-on-1 breakaways have we had because of Gino turning the puck over at the blue line on the power play, or just in general, or making dumb mistakes, or getting goaded into taking a bad penalty at a bad time? So they're kind of polarizing figures. And I know a lot of people, especially some radio hosts, we're not going to talk trade Gino. What do you guys think, though? Like, if it was up to me, I have 2 ways I'm going to go on this. Hockey-wise, I think you would have to keep Letang if you had to choose. And here's why. It is much harder to fill or replace what Letang does on defense than what Malkin does on offense, even though Malkin is amazing. Because Letang eats up minutes. Like most years, he's 3rd or 4th most minutes in the entire league per game. He's maybe one of the best in the league at moving the puck out of the defensive zone, which is hard to find. And you notice when Letang's out of the lineup, the Pens do considerably worse, and they have a lot of trouble moving the puck out of the zone. And it is much harder to find a top pair, best overall, number 1 overall defenseman for your roster than a second line center. Now, you might not get a second line center who's as dominant as Evgeny Malkin, but that's an easier role to fill than name, off the top of your head, defenseman in the league like Letang that would be available. Who are you going to bring in? Are you going to draft someone and hope that they turn out like Chris Letang or at that level? A few years back, we thought John Marino was going to fill that role, and then he's kind of cooled off a little bit. So that's a really tough position to fill on your roster. And you notice when Letang's out, this team struggles defensively and played just moving the puck out of their zone. So from a hockey standpoint, I think it would be smarter to go with Letang. Now, the emotional part of me and the Penguins fan of me would pick Gino. Now, I like them both. They've both been cornerstones of this franchise. But, man, I can never forget the story of Malkin smuggling himself out of Russia, the Russian mafia, to get, or the Kremlin, whatever it was. He smuggled himself out of Russia to play for the Penguins. And that man loves Pittsburgh. He loves it. He said before he doesn't want to play anywhere else. He doesn't mind being number 2 behind Crosby. That fits for him, less pressure. If you've ever seen pictures he's taken in his house, he's got Pittsburgh, everything. He loves Pittsburgh. So, Malkin's one of my favorite players of all time. He reminds me a lot of Yager. Like Crosby's kind of the Mario role because overall he's definitely the better player, but he's kind of plays, a little more subtly. He does everything well. Malkin's kind of like Yager, where he's just the more physically, offensively dominant player. Like he just on the ice when he's on, no one can touch him. And he's lost that a little bit. He's not quite like as good anymore. But let's not pretend like this dude didn't just put up about 20 goals in almost half a season. Like, let's not pretend he missed almost half the season, and his numbers are still ridiculous. Like, he put him up in a full season. He's scoring at almost 40, more than a 40 goal pace. We'll see what he does in the last 2 games, but the numbers are still there for him. So don't let some other radio hosts or people trick you and pretend like Malkin fall off. Now, he's not what he used to be, and his ability to dominate the puck. Like a couple years back when he used to skate circles around the offensive zone and no one could touch him and no one could knock the puck off of him. He's not that Gino anymore, but he's still got that laser beam slap shot. He's still got the offensive skill, and that the numbers are still there. They're still there. If he can put a full season together, there's no doubt in my mind he can push close to the 100 point, 90 point mark, 40 goals a season. He can still do it. So my gut, my heart, my Penguins fan in me, I would choose Malkin. But, my brain, from a hockey standpoint, I think you would have to sign Letang. Now, we even talked about Rust and all that. How do you fit Rust in? I think Rust is due for a big payday. So I don't know. We'll see. Let me know what you guys think. Who would you choose? Would you choose Malkin or Letang? Or maybe you say about it both and you choose Brown Rust. I don't know. But if you had to choose Malkin or Letang, who would you pick? And do you think the Penguins can keep both or everybody? Would you rather keep Malkin and Letang and let Rust go? Or would you rather take one of those franchise guys, keep Rust, and let the other go? That's a good question, too. I think I would keep Malkin and Letang just because I'm sentimental. And, as good as Rust is, we've had a lot of Brian Rusts come to the door in Pittsburgh. And even though he's a great player, he does everything well. And I'm not underselling Brian Rust. He puts up the numbers like crazy. He plays defensively. He plays every zone. He's a hard-nosed player. He's great in the playoffs. He's a playoff gamer. But I think, you could find a Brian Rust much easier than you can find an Evgeny Malkin or Chris Letang, even at the end of their career. But that's just my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think in the comments about that. And I think that's our show, guys. We've talked about everything today. We talked JT Daniels, West Virginia spring game. The draft is coming up. We got more about that next week. Hey, if you're new here, subscribe. If you're not, comment down below. Let me know you've been around for a while. You sticking it out. And this is your favorite podcast for all things West Virginia, Steelers, and Penguins, and whatever else I want to talk about at the time.